Coming to you live from downtown Detroit, this is Benzinga's Pre-Market Prep with your host, Joel Elconin.
This is a volatile puppy here, isn't it?
And Dennis Dick.
I've been a penny. I will buy the stock for a penny.
With everything you need to start your trading day.
Good afternoon, traders and investors. Welcome to Thursday, March 28th edition. Good afternoon, traders and investors. Welcome to Thursday's March 28th edition of Benzinga's Pre-Market Prep. I'm your co-host, Joel Elconin, and I'll be co-hosting today with Jerremy Newsome, live from Nashville, Tennessee. We have a lot to cover on today's show. How about some of those retail earnings coming out of the pipeline last night? We had LULU, we had Five Below. Also, some earnings from this morning. We'll cover ACN and Movado. We'll talk a little bit about the tug of war in the market this week. We have GDP coming out at 8:30. We'll talk about window dressing, end of quarter tomorrow. Will they dress things up or dress things down? We have a biotech mover with some good news, AMRH. We figured we'd do a little bit of a pot stock review after the hit yesterday. And also, we'll talk just a little bit of Bitcoin. I know you guys get a little impatient with the Bitcoin, but we'll talk about that a little bit. But now we'll take a look at the S&Ps. We're trading down two handles at 2808.50. Nice range overnight. They hit it down to 27.95, but we're not concerned here in bull land until we take out 2789.50. That was Monday's low. Crude, another decline here, down 75 cents at 58.66. Gold in the red by 840 here at 1308.50. Silver in the red as well by 12 cents. We'll talk Bitcoin in 1 second here, but I want to introduce my co-host today. He's a trader. He's an investor. He's an author. He's a stand-up comedian. He's a nationally ranked snowboarder.
That's not true.
and he's a nationally ranked jiu-jitsu artist.
Neither one of those are accurate. I'm terrible at both jiu-jitsu and snowboarding.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What is jiu-jitsu? Is it like with the sticks and stuff? You throw stuff around?
Nope, no sticks. The jiu-jitsu is fully an on-the-ground MMA, mixed martial arts. So it's specifically for once a fight begins, most fights go to the ground, right? So it's all ground-based.
So you're a cage fighter too?
I have done some cage fighting in the past, yep.
Okay. All right. First, we'll get to the markets here. We'll get to the earnings in a second. Let's bring up Bitcoin here. And
sure.
The only reason I want to talk about it is you got a live position in it, and talk about the setup. It's been really sleepy as of late. I mean, I want to buy it. I mean, 4,000 looks for a potential, breakout here. I mean, you could buy it at 4,000, put a stop at 3,000, and, hope it goes to 5,000. Talk about your Bitcoin trade.
Yes. So I appreciate you bringing it up. I mean, realistically, I'll do my absolute best to just do a chart comparison really quick of two specific things. But what I'm looking at over here on Bitcoin is just purely an accumulation phase. Accumulation phase, meaning once it has the big pullback, it starts trading sideways forever. It gets sleepy, people get uninterested, and then that's when it starts to slowly pick up some steam. So on the right of this chart, you have TD Ameritrade. You've heard of that, right, Joel?
Oh, yeah.
So we have TD Ameritrade in 2000, goes from like $2 a share to $60 a share. No one talks about that. Has this massive pullback, and look at this accumulation phase that we get on TD Ameritrade. Sleepy, sideways, does nothing, but then overnight goes from $4 up until $16. That's 400% anyway, you slice it. So is there a chance that your boy Bitcoin can go from 4,000 maybe up to 10, which is a doubling. And, does that, most likely, I think it does at some point in time, eventually rally back up to here and then have a nice little pullback. Very similar to this chart. So I'm actually looking at playing Bitcoin exactly how TD Ameritrade played out. But TD Ameritrade, this is a monthly chart, and Bitcoin is a weekly. So I think everything that took, multiple 140 months for TD Ameritrade to start recovering, I think it's going to take Bitcoin 140 weeks.
Okay. All right. Well, there's a good breakdown of that. So let's go to earnings. And boy, oh boy, we have some movers in the earnings category here. And I'm glad that I have you on today because you're going to teach us how to trade these gaps here. And the first report I want to start with is with LULU. After the close last night, they posted an 11-cent beat. 174 versus 185, and then better on revenues, 1.15 billion versus 1.16 billion. So let's go to the chart here, Lululemon, and I'm sure this is just blasting off to a new all-time high, up 13%. I will just give my quick technical analysis on this one, and the only thing I have to say is I'm glad I'm not short it. And I'm definitely not long it. Trading at the highs of the pre-market session, 165.90 is your last print, up 19.10. And that is right at the highs of the session too. What I like to tell our traders or listeners is, maybe keep an eye on that 9:30 a.m. high, 9:29 and 59 seconds, and use that for a continuation move. So I know there's a gap here for you, Jeremy. Tell us how is your approach again?
Okay, so this one is going to be very interesting. And the reason I say that is because Lululemon is one that people love to short, saying, oh, there's no way it can go that high. And this is one that has burned people every earnings, more or less, since December 2017. So you had a gap up in December. You had a gap up in April. You had a massive gap up in June. You had an even bigger gap in September, and we were just kind of flat last earnings, but this earnings were gapping up again. So here's my thought. I would not short Lulu for a while. Give Lulu, if you're looking at going short, give it some time, let it make new highs, let it get around 170-ish before you start shorting this one. That's at least my take. Of course, it could always go lower, but if it's out the gate, I'm not going to look to short it until it closes below 163 because that's a very strong pre-market support. So realistically, man, on this one, it's a beautiful gap. You're absolutely correct. It's gapping up to an all-time high, but it will and has retested this previous all-time high as a, on the gap up. So gap up, it's gapped up. We're working on retesting, and man, I think it could just slowly continue higher. Ooh. And most likely, we're probably going to get something. If I had to be really frank, we're probably going to get something like this, almost very similar in September. This is a very similar gap. So we're going to probably trade up a little bit, eventually have a small fall late in the afternoon, retrace some for a few days, and then end up bouncing, making a new high around 177. And then we'll have a nice pullback around July.
All right, break down that for me. And I'm not shorting this off the hop, but if I did, you gave that 163 area as support. I'm just looking at these, the former all-time high at 164.79.
Yep.
165 if you're brave enough to short, just saying, and you're looking for it to come in. But good report. Boy, they're selling a lot of yoga pants. That's all I have to say.
They are. They really are.
Okay, so let's move on. You got another retailer here, Five Below, and Five Below reported today or after the close as well, and they're trading in the green. The $5 dollar store. They matched on the EPS, $1.58 versus $1.58. Slight beat on revenues here. 602 million was where the street was. They came in at 602.68 million for the quarter. Let's go to the chart. I will first take a look at the pre-market chart of Five Below. Now, I think this one's a little bit different because you're not, you all-time high here for me. The former all-time, nope, 136.13. So I say you got some room to 136.13 if you're super bullish. Trading at the highs of the pre-market session, 127. Nothing really comes in the dailies on my chart until you're high on February 11th at 130.68. So a little bit different of a gap scenario, gapping up, but not to a new all-time high. How's this one look to you, Jeremy?
Man, what a miss on Five Below. As far as like, I'm not in this trade at all. Look at this weekly chart, Joel. This thing was at $40 in 2017. I mean, 2 years ago, it was at $40. It's at 125 below. So yeah, you're correct. I think that there is some of that nice resistance. And if I'm looking at this chart, it just looks a little too high. I mean, it went up from $80 and some change up into 131. Just a good, nice, measly 42-point move in a few weeks. So this particular gap actually is strong because there was some nice consolidation. Here's the consolidation on the daily chart right here. So we traded sideways. We haven't really done very much, and we are gapping out of that, as you mentioned, up into the 125-ish, 126 area. So this one does have a strong propensity to continue higher, throw in some upper shadows. But again, I do plan on at some point trying to fade Five Below. If it's not today, it'll be a little bit later in the week, maybe potentially next week. But yes, early in the morning, I actually do think this could run higher, nice and higher. A lot of people are going to try to short it. They're going to get squeezed out. And then as it runs up into some resistances, maybe even after it makes a new 52-week high, I don't know if that'd be a new 52-week high, but around 134.
Okay.
So if it starts breaching 134, that's when all the newbies are going to go, oh, now it's bullish. And that's when I'll start getting in bearish.
Okay, nice look there at Five Below. You used the terminology there, and
Okay.
Dennis and I talk about double tops and bottoms, triple tops, triple bottoms, retracements. I know you like to use shadow. You said I've heard you use shadow and tweezer. Could you just give us a quick rundown of those technical terms?
Totally. So I can do both. Shadows. So if I look over here, shadow is a technical term for a candlestick. So you have shadow and wick. These are synonymous with each other. And a shadow means that at some particular point in time, the stock has gone up or down to that particular price. But what's interesting about that is if I'm looking at this candle, for example, that came in on March 21st, I can tell you for sure that the exact high of the day was 120.32. So that means as the stock went up to that level, at some point, a bunch of people started selling at 120.32. They thought that was a comfortable price to sell. And very similar with this March 20th candle, you have a low of 144.16. So that shadow means that the stock went down all the way to 144.16, and then people immediately started buying it. So shadows and wicks, those are both candlestick terms that more or less refer to how deep into price the stock went on a particular day. But the reason that's important, Joel, I'll show you with a different color arrow. Let me do blue. So right here, you'll notice that the previous day had a nice upper shadow, upper wick. Are you able to see that?
Yep, for sure.
So when that next day, that upper shadow tells me that there's a bunch of people who sold short at some point on that candle. So when it gaps above the high of the candle from the previous day, when it gaps above that wick, everyone who shorted in the previous day in that shadow is trapped, and they're going to have to buy to cover. And that's what caused that really short-term, nice, gorgeous bullish pop on Five Below.
Okay, great explanation there. I appreciate it.
Sure,
let's move on to our next report. PVH, the company formerly known as Philip Van Heusen. That stock, it's pull up the chart here, and then I can give you the report.
Oh, wow. Up 11%.
Yeah. Wow. Up $12.46 here. The street liked the report. Street estimate stood at 1.76, $1.76. They came in at $1.84. Nice, nearly a 5% beat on EPS. Revenues came in better than expected. They were looking for 2.41 billion. You came in at 2.484 billion. That's a 3% surprise to the upside here. And PVH, this is an interesting one. You had the initial surge.
Yep.
On that initial bracket, and you made a high at 124.88. And, you backed off a little bit, but there's someone selling out there. And you haven't been able to get back to that 124.88. So the way I look at this one is the longer you take to get back over 124.88, 125, 125, 125 and a half, 126, you might get a little fade there. If you're just trading off the monthly charts here, not much to lean on if you want to target $5 higher. Your November high of last year was 128.73. So, Jeremy, break down PVH for us.
Man, this is going to be a really interesting one. Here's what I think is going to happen on this. This is going to be pretty simple, I think. So, PVH is a blue chip stock. You know what that means, right, Joel?
That's all I got.
So the thing is, blue chip gaps very frequently fade. And when I say fade, that means that if a stock gaps up, it's going to trade lower. I am 100% only going to be looking for a bearish trade on PVH for a day trade. I do think it could run up a little bit, maybe throw in an upper shadow or an upper wick, right? That's going to be the people that are buying the stock. They're gonna go, oh, what a great gap, because it is a good gap technically. Like looking at the chart, it's clearing this pivot, it's gapping above all of these shorts. I mean, this is a beautiful, beautiful gap technically. You're up 11%, wonderful gap. So a lot of people are going to go long this, believe it or not. And I'm looking to see if it can throw up an upper shadow or some type of candle to show me that people are going to try to buy the breakout. But the thing is, on a dividend bill paying blue chip stock, let's say that you bought it anywhere below 110. What are most people going to do when they see this thing up?
Palms out.
They're going to sell. Exactly, man. They're going to go, oh my gosh, I'm up 12% on PVH. So they're just going to dump it out, and this is going to fade without question. So I'm only going to look for a bearish trade on PVH.
All right. And that's so the blue chippers, you think a lot with the because of the value, a lot of them. Philip Van Hughes is not a huge, heavily traded stock, is something like your Coca-Cola or whatever. But you just look at it as the institutions see this kind of price movement. I don't know how many standard deviations it's away. So their bots are just kicking in and using their risk reward ratios. So all right. So that's the blue chips. Have you tried to do any studies on that? Have you done any digging or any kind of programming to make it statistically significant?
That's a very good question. I have not dove into a lot of statistics, although we are working on, I have an algorithm class that came out a few days ago, and we're going to be working on doing some blue chips. But some of them, I mean, like anything in the market works, just not all the time. Okay. So if I do it really quickly, I'll show you one blue chip gap that has not faded very hard yet. Was IBM. So IBM, when it gapped up on the 23rd of January, it's just kept on running. And it hasn't really slowed down. Now, at some point, I do think IBM realistically could come all the way back down to 127. That would be a good spot to buy it. But you did actually have a relatively okay bearish day trade opportunity on that day. But yes, like I said, everything works just not all the time. But what I can say is if a dividend stock gaps up enough, PVH will either do what IBM did, or it's going to roll down and fill the gap.
Hey, you know what? Maybe the difference here with IBM is it's just been such a horrible performer.
Yeah, and a lot of people were short, and they probably got stuck a little bit.
Yep. Okay. All right.
Your mic went a little bit light, by the way, Joel.
No, it did. My mic here went a little bit light.
Your mic's been acting weird. Yeah, it's a little on the soft side.
Testing. Is it back yet? Okay.
There you go. There it goes. There we go.
All right, we gotta now I can tell we got a little bit of a short here, but we're still rolling on here.
Yep, let's do it.
And for those that are wondering, Triple D is attending his grandmother's funeral today. So condolences out to Dennis and his family. Let's move on to the earnings parade here on Benzinga's Pre-Market Prep Show. And let's cover some earnings from this morning. Let's go with ACN. And let me pull up the report here for ACN, Accenture. You know what this stock is famous for, is trading down to a penny during the flash crash. You were probably still in college during the flash crash, but let me pull up the numbers for ACN, Accenture.
Flash Clash to 2010?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. Oh boy. And and I don't know if I told you this, but that happened in May of 2010. And in January of 2010, Dennis writes articles for the CFA magazine, and there was a flash crash in a stock Rambus, RMBS. Basically, the article that he wrote for the CFA magazine was, what if this happened to the entire market? And he wrote that in January and ended up having the flash crash as well. So Accenture, $1.57 estimate. They came in at $1.73. Sales beat 10.5 billion to 10.3 billion estimate. So that's a nice beat for ACN.
Wow, what a run this thing's been on.
And let me pull up my chart here.
What a run, Joel.
We're not shorted. Okay, interesting here during the pre-market trading. You popped up to 175 even. This one's a little bit easier for me because you have the all-time high at 175.64. So you have backed off $2.50 off that pre-market high in the area of the all-time high. Do you consider this in the blue chip category?
Absolutely, I do, and I will be looking at shorting it. On a day trade, of course, on a day trade. But my short level will be with a break and or close of what price is this? 172. So what's happening right now is we're putting in a lot of whole numbers on ACN. So like the pre-market high was 175.01. We got some lows of 172. We got some closes of 173. We got an open of 173.50. So whatever bots are trading this, they're doing it with the whole numbers. I don't know what that means, but just throwing that out there. I most likely be looking at shorting ACN today on a day trade, because again, look at this weekly chart, Joel. This thing has just been going bonkers. This is when everyone thought the entire market would collapse and go to zero right here. And then once it did not do that and rallied higher, this has just been a masterful move. I mean, incredible trend. So it's actually, the thing is, it's a great gap. It really is, but I just don't see how it can continue up much higher.
Okay, our next earnings stock here, Movado. Man, it should have just been long all the retailers here. Movado posted a Q4 adjusted EPS beat of 12 cents.
What's the ticker for Movado? I don't know that one, Joel.
Oh, I got you.
You got me.
MOV.
MOV. I should know that. That makes sense.
That one. 12-cent beat. Sales. Nice beat on sales. 199.4 million versus estimates of 194.18. They're giving you some guidance. Guidance doesn't seem great. 270 to 280 versus 290. But a little better sales guidance. So the focus here is on the EPS beat, the sales beat from the quarter. Movado, I might be a little careful in this one, Jeremy, because it's trading up over $4. I don't even see 1,000 shares traded on this one, so not much volume. Right up here, pre-market high, 38.35. I don't know who would buy it up there. Not seeing much on the monthlies. Not a lot here, Jeremy, but give your analysis here on Movado, MOV.
Yes. So I agree with you 100%. There's very, very little volume pre-market, but I will be exceptionally excited to find out if and how this thing opens, because I do love this gap. So this is one, I mean, you talk about a stock that's gotten beat up. So I like it when stocks get beat up, because this thing has actually had what people refer to as a pullback. It went from 52 to 30. So that's a decent little pullback, decent little correction. That's relatively healthy, relatively natural. And now we're gapping above all of these pivots. So I mean, we haven't been this high since December. So you're talking about clearing 3 months worth of price action, a lot of upper shadows. Again, volume on this one's a little bit on the light side, but if it opens and throws in a candle or two, I'll give it a minute or two, but this is one that I will be looking at going long on today for a day trade.
Okay, I should be back here. Little malfunction here in my microphone, a little short, but Chris took care of it, so we should be fine here. Just give me a 1 if you should be able to hear me back here.
Yep, you're loud and clear.
Okay, all right. So let's go back and see what else we need to talk about today. Let's just do a little pot stock review. Our group loves to be involved in the marijuana sector here. And Cron, let's start with Cron. It had its report, and the report was okay, but it got hit with a downgrade yesterday, and they took it through the resistance. You had a trio of lows at 1930. You cracked that yesterday, gave you a good shot on the downside, went down to 1771 here. So let's not talk about this from a day trading perspective, though. Let's talk about it from a little bit longer term. And I know you've played some of the other stocks for longer term trades. Let's just run through here on the dailies and take a look at some of the marijuana stocks. Let's start with Cron.
Let's do it. So this particular one, what I'm keeping a really close eye on is I'm bearish short term.
Okay.
This is a really strong candle. I mean, you got the gap down. You had an inside day candle on Tuesday. You had the gap down, the downgrade, the bearish candle, the bearish close. You're closing below all moving averages, and we're gapping down a little bit now post market. The only thing is, Kronos is very hard to short. So it's like it takes a mission and a half to find some shares to actually borrow on this. So if you're playing it, you're gonna have to bust out those Joel Elconin option trade specials. I'm thinking on this one, I'm not majestically bearish by any means, so I don't think it's gonna go to zero. But I think after you had a run up of no big deal, 150% in the course of a few weeks. All right. A lot of people forget about that. They're like, oh, that happened forever ago. No, dude, that happened 3 weeks ago, pretty much. So you had 150% run up, massive move. Talk about shadows, Joel. This is where all of the newbies went, oh yeah, this is a great time to buy it right there. So they get in up there, a lot of upper shadows, a lot of selling pressure. So yes, I think Kronos could trade all the way back down to 14. Not today by any means, but at some point over the next few weeks. But that would be a good buying spot technically. And I'm bearish on this one today, man. I like this gap down that we're getting, and I would be keeping an eye out for a bearish entry below 1788.
All right. And what about maybe selling calls in it or whatever? I mean, I'm sure after the juice really came out of them, but do you have preferred strategies, selling call, well, not naked calls, but call spreads? Is that something? I mean, because obviously when you're buying the puts, you're paying up to the premium gods. Do you have a preference of going with the puts or selling call spreads?
You know what? So I was looking at this one right now, and I didn't consider it actually until you just mentioned it, but a 22-23 April bear call spread pays about 13 cents, which is 13% return. Mm-hmm. That's not that terrible. And I like, if I do a bearish call trade, you're correct. I very, very rarely sell naked calls, but I do like usually going with a bear call spread on a position like this. I think those can be fun. Bear put spreads can also be fun. So a bear put spread, let me write this in here really quick. So this would be a bear call. Bear call would be selling the 22, buying the 23 for April. And then if you do a bear put spread, that would be buying the 20 put and selling the 16. And that would be, so one's a credit and one's a debit. So this one would be a debit of $2 and the one above would be a credit of 13 cents. So that's two positions you could play on CRON. I like the bear call spread, man. Thanks for that idea. I'm gonna keep an eye on that.
Okay. All right. Let's just break down. We don't have to set up any particular trades, but let's just take a look at CGC, Canopy Growth. That's been a nice runner, nice performer. That's falling back as well. Do you got something on in this one?
Oh man, I'm looking to short this so heavy today. Oh boy. So what happened is I did some analysis on this one on the 20th of March. This is a true story, Joel.
True story.
On the 20th of March, I go into Twitter and I'm just scrolling, sitting on the can or something, and I am seeing hundreds of people. They're like, oh, CGC is breaking out. It's going bullish because they have this triangle pattern drawn, right? Everyone has this triangle pattern drawn. Tons of volume came in. Look at the volume on this thing, dude. So you have tons of volume came in, big upper shadow, did not close above the breakout. So I said, guys, everyone's about to get trapped on this. They're going to get squeezed out, all the people who took this thing long. So now that you're gapping down today and you're almost gapping below the low of yesterday, short CGC with both hands down into 35 over the next few weeks. And then from down there, you can buy the dip.
Okay. All right. Nice breakdown of that. Before we go to our next marijuana stock, we got some economic data here. Like, I really care what the economic data is on the GDP. I also see some stuff on jobless claims. The reason I mentioned it is the SPOOs were trading in the green here. And we just got knocked around a little bit. We're now trading in the red by just a couple points here. But prior to that GDP number, we were trading in the green. And I think I mentioned this at the top of the show. A tug of war this week in the market. You had the Friday low and you took it out on Monday, but we came roaring back. So still, I think the market's undecided here, still using 27.90. That's a huge level of support. So I'm not going to get my super bear cap on until we take out that area. So let's just move on. The worst performer of these marijuana stocks has been TLRY, the one that went to 300 here. Oh boy. Burned down on the lows of the move. I mean, made a new low yesterday. 64.45 was your prior low of the move. 63.40 you hit. You're trading down again here. Man, you can hit this thing. Are you too late to go short TLRY?
No. So this thing eventually will just keep on slowly crawling back, because you know what's funny, man? So people give a bunch of crap about Bitcoin, but very few people talk about the travesty that is TLRY. How do you lose $20 million selling weed? Like, that's like, you've got to be bad at business. At one point up here, they were worth, I think it was like $290 billion, and they were losing $90 million in earnings selling weed. So I was like, what are you doing wrong? So yes, this thing's just going to keep slowly creeping lower. The problem is, you're absolutely correct, it's a very volatile stock. So the implied volatility is off the charts on this thing. So you're either selling call spreads and just waiting, or if you are in a longer term put, you might be selling puts against it. You can't find any shares to short, or at least it's very, very challenging. But yes, I do think this is just going to slowly and without question keep going lower.
All right, two more stocks. With ACB, did you have a long in and that one?
I did. Thanks for remembering, man. Yep, I had a long ACB. I'm out of that long. And it was some $8 April calls. I got into those on the 7th of March. And so it had a nice little pop. I got lucky, obviously. This was just pure luck with the gap up. So it held through the gap up, nice little run. So now we're pulling back. And this one, I would argue, is probably the strongest of the alternative harvesting stocks. So this one, I do actually like the trend. I love the weekly volume. It hasn't done anything astronomically insane. We're still kind of actually, believe it or not, in a channel. And we traded back down to the 100, the simple 100 moving average a few months ago. So realistically, this is just kind of hanging out, trading sideways a little bit. I love the volume coming in on this one, and I would be a dip buyer on this long term.
So you still have your April calls then, right?
I do not. I'm fully out of all longs on ACB.
Oh, okay. But it did. Yeah, I see exit all target.
That's what I was hoping for, man. I was really stretching for 11. Yeah, I was stretching for 1154. But once this candle came in and it started gapping down, I was like, well, I guess I'm not going to get to that target, at least not yet. So
okay, all right.
Yeah. But I will probably play this one again. Maybe some May calls on a pullback because they're not really expensive.
May, oh man, are those leaps if you go all the way out to May?
No, not quite. Not quite. I know how you are with your weekly extra.
Yeah, they're horrible. I'm just gonna start selling them. APHA, that would be the last one. I think Dennis is in this one longer term, and this one a little bit sitting on some pretty good support here on the dailies. It has pulled off the high. I don't think it was this. I think ACB, the one was Nelson Peltz got into here, but this looks like, man, I don't think you want to see this lose $9 here. I'm looking at 907, 915, some other lows in the 9 handle, 890, 908. So I don't know. This one to me, support is support until it's taken out, but under 9 looks like we got some downside.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, man, on this one. I mean, it's, this one did get below the 100 simple on the weekly in December. It had a really nice, pretty deep pullback. Again, nice lower shadow. You can see some people were buying all the way down there. So at this point, I would just say let it pull back. I agree with Joel, maybe around $8 or something. It does look a little on the weaker side. So I'm thinking on this one, a pull back to 765 would be ideal.
Okay, we will keep an eye on that one. Let's just take a quick look at the market here. Still down 275 here, 2807.75. Mid range on the session is 2805. So that's your area of interest. Your close was 2810. So we're just kind of stuck here. We'll see if the market can shake out the doldrums here before the show ends. Crude continuing to head lower. Your current low is 58.20, down 98 cents. Just remember, you got a series pair of lows in the lower $58 handles. So Jeremy likes to trade gaps, and gaps are often created by earnings, by different fundamental factors. But another factor that affects stocks is upgrades and downgrades, right?
Right. Tell us about those.
Well, it's funny because, when we do our afternoon show and stuff, and like you're reviewing some of your trades, and I'm like, hey, that one was upgraded. Hey, it was downgraded. And
that's happened a lot. That happens a lot. I agree.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, and then it turns out that you have a good or bad trade in it. But here's an interesting one for us. SeaWorld sees it's up at B. Riley from neutral to buy, and they're raising their price target from 30 to 34. So home of Shamu here. What are you thinking of C's? What are you thinking? We did look at this one on the pre-market show, and it was trading up.
Pre-market.
It's trading up, not a ton of volume here, trading up 53 cents at 25.15. Jeremy, how much emphasis when you're looking at these gaps do you put on the volume that goes into these gaps? I know that you mentioned that, the blue chippers you like to fade. How much emphasis do you put on the volume from the after hours and pre-market trading?
That's a great question, man. I mean, obviously, if you get a lot of pre-market volume, that's good. But as long as it's not like one of those random flashes, if I know there's some volume coming in, the less volume that comes in, the longer I wait before I trade that stock. Because if there's no volume, then it's really hard for me to kind of analyze what's happening pre-market. So for example, in SeaWorld, we're talking like 7,000 shares has come in. So I'm going to wait on this one because as you can see, Joel, there's not a lot of actual candle data on the screen. So it's just kind of like all over the place. So I'm going to wait on this one for 2 to 3 minutes. I actually do like it for a bullish trade up to about 25.76. So if you can catch maybe 40, 50 cents on this, I heard mathematically for every 1,000 shares, you make 50 cents. That's $500.
Yeah.
So we'll see what SeaWorld does. I'll give it a few minutes though before I trade it. But I actually am looking on running this one up a little bit higher pretty quickly. And then after that, I'll probably cut bait and run.
What time frames do you? I know you like to do your charts off the open. Are you? I know we've talked about the 3 minute. Do you go to the 1 minute? Because some of these moves, if you don't catch them in the first couple minutes, they're hard to catch. What's your favorite time frame for catching trades off the open?
I think my favorite time frame is probably 3 minutes. So I have a 3 minute chart open, and I wait somewhere between 3 and 6 minutes. That's probably the most frequent. If I trade something in the 98% of the time, I wait at least 30 seconds. Let some crazy wicks get thrown in or thrown down just to see where people are kind of exploring price so I can either be buying or selling. I don't have much experience at all doing what Dennis Dick does because he's a robot. But buying and selling pre-market.
Buddy, you weren't supposed to tell anybody.
Shoot. Buying and selling pre-market, I have not mastered that by any stretch. So I don't do that. But yeah, man, I think you're absolutely correct. I like waiting that 3 to 6 minute time frame and then getting into a trade. That's usually my most common time period of waiting.
All right, downgrade here. We got FDX, Federal Express. Let me pull up that downgrade. It received a downgrade this morning. And Susquehanna downgraded the stock from positive to neutral. And I just want to see if this it had the earnings dip, and it's trying to fight its way back here. Couldn't quite fill the gap. Tough call on this one. Susquehanna has got it traded down $1.41 here. So I don't think this is we're trading, and are we still trading in yesterday's range? Oh, this is interesting. You're opening into yesterday's low at 174.59. Boom, boom. What do you think here, Jeremy? If it holds, you're going to fade it if it holds yesterday's low, or going to take it to the downside and look for Tuesday's low of 172.47.
So what's interesting is right now it's below yesterday's low. So yeah. So if it opens below there, this is talk about Susquehanna. Look at this thing. I mean, so we're talking about pre-market volume. See these dashes right here?
Yeah.
Dash. That's probably Dennis right there. So there's not enough volume on this one. I think you have like 500 shares traded pre-market. So I'm not going to do anything too wild and crazy. This probably does fill the gap, but I will wait 3 minutes. And if it does open and give me some type of candle and breaks lower, I can short this, sure.
Okay. And, it's not directly related, but we'd like to talk about sympathy plays here a lot on the show. So we'll take a quick look at UPS, and it's just been quiet here. Nice little 2-day rally. I guess the thing with this, if you're, small ranges in this only had a $1 range yesterday. I guess you closed at 108.41. I see 108.98. So, if you could get this thing right into yesterday's high, 109.14, 108.79. But we'll see if there's a follow through in UPS. Not seeing a whole heck of a lot of follow through in FDX as well. That chart just kind of looks like it's in no man's land to me. Let me take a look at my ratings calendar and see if anything else trickled in here. Boom. Got the SeaWorld. Nope. Let's Goldman Sachs is reiterating its buy on Five Below. And Credit Suisse is maintaining, but they raised their price target from 115 to 120. So analyst hopping in here in Five Below.
What do you think about the big banks, Joe, like Credit Suisse and Deutsche?
Oh boy. I mean, it's just the Deutsche Bank indicator. I mean, how could you be excited about, these European banks with, negative interest rates and everything? And you know what? You could say that, may have an effect on our market, but it hasn't. It's been selling Europe, buy the United States, and that's been the trade. So,
yeah. There's your platform when you run for president.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll wait for that one. But okay. So that's just my opinion. And also, I mean, is Brexit over? Can you tell me when Brexit's going to be over as far as the European situation?
I think it's mostly over, man.
Did they? I know they had a vote yesterday, and Theresa May was stepping down yesterday, but it seems like they, Brexit and tariffs. I don't know which one is going to be resolved. Going to be resolved faster here. Also on the Pre-Market Prep show, we like to take a look at stocks that are reporting after the close or tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Talk about a mover, Restoration Hardware. The street. Let's look at this one. Let me go to earnings. And if you are trading this one after the close, they're looking for $2.85 here, $2.85 on revenues of $686 million. This is a stock I love to hate, but I don't short it that much. Do you ever been in any of their stores? And I don't know. They have like $500 couches we talk about all the time. Sitting on the lows of the move here, just sitting here at 130, holding support. I guess what I'll do is, because all these other retailers blow it away, and I'll buy some calls on this and then watch it open at 115 here. But major resistance here at 135, and it looks like you're leaking on support here. Or it looks like you're breaking down, but will that breakdown be a fake down? Jeremy, break down Restoration Hardware for us.
Boy, oh boy. So I was actually looking at some option pricing change on this one, because I'm interested to see how it does gap, because this probably will be a very good strangle to play. Like you mentioned, Restoration gaps hard. And we have a doji yesterday. So if you're talking about more indecision, I mean, you can't get more indecisive than that. So I was looking at like a 100, 160. So buying some 100 for next week and buying some 160 calls for next week. But realistically, I mean, I think it fades the gap, whatever the gap does. So if it gaps down big, it's going to run higher. And if it gaps up, it'll probably throw a little bit of a move higher, but then it'll eventually fade, because it's just been so volatile. Check out this weekly chart. I mean, so you're talking about, no joke, just an insane run up. Oh yeah. Oh man. If it gaps down to 100, I'm so bullish. This is painful. Let's cross our fingers, man. It gaps down there. I'm gonna sell puts. I'm gonna buy calls. I'm gonna buy shares. I'm gonna do everything.
You better check with Ashley on that one.
I'm getting a HELOC. Just kidding.
Let me talk to one other thing here about options. We have a guest on Tuesday, Nick Shaheen, and he always likes to keep an eye on the open interest in options. Now, smaller stocks like this may not have as much effect, but the pinning on the weeklies and some of the bigger stocks does the open interest factor into your analysis at all?
Man, that's a great question. You know, I've been asked that a few times, and the challenge with open interest, in my opinion, is for the vast majority of the time, we don't know if it's buying to open or selling to open, and that's two different things. So open interest, to me, I have done some statistics on this one. Ready for this? Works 49.3% of the time. So
get your coin out.
Get your coin out. Yep, get your coin out and play some roulette and have some fun. I mean, that's realistically the statistics I've seen. That's what we got.
And so the big option trades that you hear about. I mean, what Dennis and I just pretty much said about this is, like, you see a big option trade and you see someone buying a bunch of calls. Well, how do you know they're not short the stock?
Exactly. Right? Yeah, totally.
And as a hedge. I mean, we do streaming on Pro here. And what I think is interesting is when you see a series of trades in different months, in different strikes. And then that's, someone's kind of, someone's creeping in or creeping out of a position, and you could see it that way. So just one off, it's hard to put a lot of emphasis on it. But when you see, I think, I can't bring it up right now, but there was a point before AMD had one of its runs, and 2 or 3 months, someone was in there huge, buying whatever, the 21 calls, the 22 calls, the 23 calls, and then boom, the stock had the move. But I know you like to get down and dirty in AMD sometimes. What do you got here? You got an open order?
I have an open order waiting to get filled. I missed it yesterday by, I think it seems, about 10 cents. 25 calls on AMD for $1. Seems fair, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's not too bad. April, giving yourself a little bit of time on that. So, okay. I like to you put those right out there, and nothing will change. Like, what would make you cancel that order?
That's a good question. I mean, nothing really. Yeah, if we were gapping down below yesterday's low this morning, I'd cancel it and bring it down more. So okay. I'd probably do like a 75-cent purchase.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think I'm going to leave AMD open. I just like the weekly chart. The weekly chart looks nice. Here's the weekly. Trend looks pretty. Volume looks kind of cute. I love the volume from last week. So volume keeps coming in on AMD. This is, in my personal opinion, some type of interesting wave count where you got like a 1, 2, 3. This is some kind of ugly wave 4, and we're working on a wave 5 right now.
All right. And as far as your chart analysis, do you like to, after the close, do you get up early in the morning, or do you, for your longer term positions, when do you like to do your studying?
Longer term, I do them after market close so that I'm not affected by what it's doing. And then I kind of do my analysis. Then I wait for the next close of business. So, that 18 to 24 hour period. I will wait, and then once that second day is closed, that's when I'll set up a longer term trade.
All right, so let's like open things up to the chat here.
Absolutely.
And we're gonna first I'll give you the stock, and then I'll let you go. And if we both agree, then the trader can do the opposite and make how funny it looks, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Macy's, letter M here. Boy, oh boy, look at this. This is a Rob Hood chart. When you've been doing the show as long as I have, you have different people in the chat, and they bring up these charts, and this is a Rob Hood chart. And the chart, it's bullish. I don't think Rob Hood ever goes bearish. And it's a stock like just bumping up against resistance. And I'm looking at this. It's pretty long consolidation period. You see a high at 24.45. You hit 24.48 yesterday. You're trading up 17 cents here. I mean, it's getting a lot of retail love. What's your thoughts here on, I'm not shorting it, and I see a potential breakout here. What you looking for in Macy's?
I kind of agree. You have 4 bearish months in a row as far as candles and as far as price action. So that's a big deal. I mean, it's hard for Macy's to sell off that much. On a weekly chart, let me see, this candle closed, open. So yeah, this last week's candle closed at 23.31. This week's candle opened at 23.35. So you had some people from the last 2 weeks get a little bit trapped on the gap up. Daily chart, you have a little bit of a high wave candle yesterday. You do have some volume that came in after dividends. Earnings is over. I kind of agree, man. I think that this looks relatively nice.
All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on Macy's today. And we did mention, we already covered RH, Jazz. So if you want to rewind, you can find that. Rob Hood also wants to take a look at Dunkin'. Is this called Donuts? Not Dunkin' Donuts? Did they change their name or something?
Dunkin'.
Did they just change their name or something? Or was that
Dunkin' Brands?
Dunkin' Brands here, because they got other stuff here. Nice looking chart, trading up 33 cents here. For me, I go to the monthlies and I see just a bunch of monthly highs. Listen, folks, 74.87, 75.12, and 75.29. Those were your monthly highs, October, November, and December. You're coming up on that area. So I think it might take a little breather there the first time. But the all-time high stands at 77.13. What are you looking at in Dunkin' Brands?
That's a good question. This one is going to unquestionably go higher, just looking at the chart, I think. I mean, you had this nice pullback, one big monthly drop, and the last few times it's done that was here, 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 and here. And all those situations, we more or less ended up going higher after that one just really quick big drop. So, I mean, the trend is bullish. Can't argue that. Monthly chart's bullish. As you mentioned, weekly chart is bullish, as you mentioned, and daily chart is bullish. Oh, that's the hourly chart. Sorry. Daily chart is bullish. So I would be looking for a dip buying opportunity. Volume is increasing over the last 3 days. So it'd be a buy the dip for me around 72.5 with a stop at about 70.5.
All right. Next stock here, we have a direct question. The question is NLSN. I believe that's Nielsen Holding PLC. Is it down to 22 or lower? Now, this thing is moving in the pre-market down to 32. And I know
we didn't have that one, Joel.
No? Well, now you have it. Now, there's news on this one, right? So I'm going to go and see if I can. Oh, come on. NLSN.
Yeah.
Let's see. Trading lower after a media report stated Blackstone is no longer interested in acquiring the company following months of speculation. Well, Blackstone, we could have saved you a lot of money by telling you Nielsen's. I mean, who watches? I mean, they rate everything, right? It's just not ratings here. But man, when you hear these strategic alternative things, and they're looking to to get out, it's fine to buy it off those kind of things, but you better sell it too, because if those strategic alternatives or a company like Blackstone goes no longer interested here, and I'm not sure when did those talks. What we like to do on this one is we like to see where it started, like when they started pumping this thing about the strategic alternatives, and I can't see where it started. Maybe if I go to the daily chart here, maybe it started in March. And we are already trading below that area. But I'll just look back for the area of origin, where the rumor started. Can't find it right now. Pre-market low 23.50. Interesting, though, you got a rebound up to 24.78. So I'll just look at those early levels. You're breaking an area of support at 26.63. On the day, this must have been maybe it was at the beginning of the year. I look at, we're below 24.37. Really, only daily low I have here is 23.11. But I think there's a lot of people that are going to be dumping this stock today. Is this a little bit too much of a gap down for you to short into?
So that's a great question. This one is, as far as the technical charts, a very, very strong gap. But there's one issue. This is a blue chip. So blue chip being down 8.5%. You had a bunch of bearish volume come in yesterday. So I would 100% look to go long this today. As bearish as it is, you're going to have a bunch of newbies trying to short this one today, and they're going to forget that it actually does pay dividends. So people are going to try to buy this on a dip, including myself, for a day trade.
Okay. All right. Let's look. We just got a few more minutes here, and I did not pay attention to the Google chat. They threw some stocks in here. So let me pull one for Randall. Randall's new here, and he wants you to take a look at AA Alcoa. And stock is flat. I know from this one, long-term trend is not great and one of the greatest bull markets of all time. So if you're looking for a trade, I mean, you have a pair of bottoms, 27, 22, 27, 27. So pair of lows to lean on here. Not super excited about this one. Pair of highs at 28, 60. Trade to range. Any thoughts on AA, Alcoa? A pair of lows to.
I don't have much thoughts on this one, man. This one
Okay.
looks boring, sideways. Try to buy it at 18 if you can. I would be buying it right here. Personally, that doesn't mean it can't go higher, but just looking at it, it looks, I like how you brought it up. You're talking about a very, very strong bull market, and this is doing absolutely jack squat. So I'd say no on this one.
Okay. All right. It's 9:00 here, Jeremy. And man, this has been a lot of fun.
Always.
We cover a lot of stocks, great use of the charts there. Before you go, at the top of the show, I mentioned you were an author. And so tell us about your book. I don't know if you could throw, I don't know if you have the chat up or whatever. Oh, there you go.
I don't have the chat up. I'm not able to do it, but yes, I appreciate you saying that, man. Thank you. Just came out yesterday. It's on Kindle and it's also on paperback. So if you want the actual paperback, just go to books and type in Money Grows on Trees. So this book is just simply about the thoughts and the sayings that we have in life that may or may not be holding us back from what we want. So for example, the term filthy rich, right? Or why is getting rich filthy? Money does in fact grow on trees. You can see which, again, not to berate or be mean to this gentleman, but this book says money doesn't grow on trees. Mine says money does grow on trees. So I'm breaking down some financial barriers. I'm breaking down some financial thoughts. It's a great book. Check it out. So paperback and Kindle on Amazon.com.
Okay. All right. I'm going to wrap things up for today. Thank you very much, Jeremy. That was a lot of fun. I'll be joining you later on today at 3:00 for post-market prep.
Yes.
Booze trading down. Let's just call it flat, 28.10. We've been in a trading range here, maybe looking for follow through that pre-market high, 14.75. Above that, not a lot in there. Yesterday's high and Tuesday's high are up at the 28.30 area, so we will have to keep an eye on that. On the downside, 27.90. That was Monday and Wednesday's low. So in a trading range going into the end of the week. Cannot wait for tomorrow's show. The lift IPO, who knows how high it's going to be opening, but we are going to have Eric Kroll, and he is an author. He's written The Life Cycle Trends of IPOs. He's going to be joining us. I had a 35-minute chat with him the other day to prep for it, and he has some strong opinions on the lift IPO. He will be joining us. We might do it a little earlier tomorrow at 8:30. So please tune in for that. Thank you all for attending. Jeremy, thank you. What a great show. And I don't have to decide if I'll keep Dennis around. So
Thanks, everyone. I appreciate your time.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Jeremy.
See ya.
Have a good day.